Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Luke, and in this video we're going to look at the best Queensland property investment locations based on supply and demand. Now, Matusik Research recently put out a table which went around the grounds of Brisbane, looking at the major government areas such as Brisbane, Ipswich, Moreton Bay, Logan, and many more within southeast Queensland. They looked at the supply side, so what areas had new detached housing supply coming on in the next 5 years, and they also looked at the demand side of the equation, so what demand is going to form in these local councils. Now, before we jump further into this analysis in this video around property investing locations, I'd just like to tell you more about my channel. So I talk about real estate, renovating, and financial freedom, and I'd also like to thank Ben Sherman for sponsoring this video. They sent me out some great clothes. If you're looking for high quality menswear, check them out online or in stores. Now, this table here looks at the major local authority areas, and it goes through the annual attached housing demand for those areas as well. I know other YouTubers have looked at this recently, so it's going to be interesting to compare their thoughts to my thoughts on the analysis of this data, because at the end of the day, we're looking to make informed investment decisions. You know, you can't go into a property investment blind. You need to look at what data is available out there around demand and supply, which is the true equation for understanding how property is going to increase in value over time. Now, there's lots of common sayings in property investing that land appreciates and buildings depreciate. And so it'll be interesting to see what areas or what land supply is looking to have more demand in the future, and what areas are potentially oversupplied in the next 5 years in the southeast Queensland market. So I'm going to share my thoughts on exactly where I see these areas and these councils having opportunities, and what areas might potentially be oversupplied and you may not want to put your money. First off, we've got Brisbane, Gold Coast, Ipswich, Lockyer Valley, Logan, Moreton Bay, Noosa, Redlands, Sunny Coast, and Toowoomba, making up the whole of southeast Queensland. Now, looking at the annual attached housing demand, let's just start off with Brisbane. So we can see that there's going to be from 2021 to 2026, annual attached housing demand of 1,000, but total attached housing demand of 5,000, with potential new housing attached of the supply at 3,312, meaning that this area is undersupplied. So essentially there's not enough housing stock coming onto the market in terms of new supply compared to the demand for this area. Now, Brisbane is a very built up area. There are some suburbs that have 800 square metre homes or larger blocks that can be subdivided through council approval, but there are lag times with the Brisbane City Council, and people are finding it difficult to do those developments in a large quantity. So that really explains why Brisbane has such a small number of new dwellings that are going to come in the next 5 years, because developers and mum and dad investors that are looking to find splitter blocks or battle axe blocks are actually struggling to get those developments processed and approved and completed. So there's going to continue to be more demand in the Brisbane as a council as a whole, whereas looking at other locations that might potentially be oversupplied like the Gold Coast, there's going to be 28,000 dwellings built with only 7,400 people looking to demand in the Gold Coast City Council for new dwellings. As you run down the list here, you can see that there's potentially a number of areas that are oversupplied. Matusik's listed here that the Gold Coast, Ipswich, Logan, Redland Bay, and southeast Queensland as a whole will be oversupplied. There's also going to be a lot of demand of people moving interstate and overseas migration coming in. Now, this data has come from the Queensland Treasury and the ABS, so as with all data, we need to take it with a grain of salt. But let's look at that oversupply issue and talk around that, because I've heard some commentators talk about Ipswich and Logan, and I'll give you my thoughts on those areas right now. So when you're looking at the Ipswich City Council, you're moving out west from Brisbane. Now, Ipswich is meant to be its own hub, its own resource centre, its own working hub. And Springfield, which is a town centre, is also meant to have jobs and infrastructure that people can work, live, go to the shops and spend their whole life in Springfield as their own town centre or their own city. Now, that isn't quite the case at the moment. Most of the people living in these areas like Ipswich and Springfield have to travel towards Brisbane, towards where most of the population is and where most of the jobs are. Now, in 15 years' time, that may not be the case, and Springfield and Ipswich might be their own true cities, but we're not there yet. So in terms of buying in the western corridor of Brisbane out towards Ipswich and Springfield, I would steer well clear of those locations that have this large supply. So where developers are cutting up large blocks of land, and there's going to be a huge amount of supply coming in the funnel. Even if you're buying a couple of suburbs away from these locations, you want to be careful that your property is not going to be seen as old and run down, and new stock is coming on at a similar price, that people can just go out there and buy. So if you buy a house and plan in, just say, Ripley Valley, then you may want to be careful that there's going to be plenty of other houses that come up in the next few years, which are on the same small block, 350 square meters, the same layout, basic 4-bed, 2-bath, very small bedrooms. So just be wary of that when you're making an investment decision. Now, I've heard a lot of commentators talk about Logan, south of Brisbane. Logan's a terrible place to buy. And that's definitely true for some pockets. There's low socioeconomic pockets, and there's a massive part of Logan out near Park Ridge and Crestmead and Waterford, south of Waterford, that has a large amount of land supply. Now, what's going to continue to happen in Logan is the council is going to continue to approve developers, create more housing stock, but you don't want to be buying in these areas as an investment because essentially, like we talked about before, there's going to be more housing coming on the market, and it's not going to be a great investment decision for you. But the problem I find with, looking at this data at a local council level and not analysing at the suburb specific level is you really miss out on suburbs that might be a great investment in the Logan Shire and rule it out completely just based on some guy on YouTube like myself or anyone else talking about councils and places, good places to buy and bad places to buy. Obviously take my word with a grain of salt and do your own research, but I'm just going to give you a couple of examples in Logan that might be great buys. On the very northern side of Logan, we buy in suburbs like Springwood and Rochdale South. Now, these are not secrets. They're great locations at the end of the 8 Mile Plains bus station, but they're in Logan City Council. But there's no large land supply that's coming on the market near these suburbs. They've been established around for at least 20 to 30 years, if not longer, and there's going to continue to be demand in these locations. Now, Springwood is the town centre of Logan City Council, and the council is putting a lot of money and development into that location, into the shops and the schools and the local amenities in that specific area. So just take it with a grain of salt when we talk about Logan as a whole, as an entire council. Yes, generally as an entire council, there's plenty of areas you don't want to buy, like low socioeconomic areas and large housing supply areas. But just be careful that you don't rule out all the suburbs within that shire because there's potentially some great opportunities to invest and put your money in locations that are established and meet the basic fundamentals of investing. Let's continue to look at the undersupplied areas and talk about what the demand might look like in these locations. So undersupplied, we've got Brisbane, we've got Lockyer Valley, we've got Moreton Bay, and we've got the Sunny Coast and Toowoomba and Noosa as well. So essentially a lot of bayside locations and some more rural locations that don't have a large amount of data around them. So talking around a Lockyer Valley, for example, or a Toowoomba, these are more regional locations, and that means there's going to be less demand in total. Now, my personal strategy is to stick to the more metro markets and build a foundational portfolio, and then move to cash flow plays in regional locations or look for other opportunities. So if you're looking for that, maybe Lockyer Valley or Toowoomba might be the play for you. But generally speaking, if we're looking for blue chip buy and hold metro locations, I would be sticking to the Brisbane and potentially the large coastal locations. Noosa and the Gold Coast, even though Gold Coast has oversupply, if you're looking along the coastline within, say, 800 meters from the water or a kilometer from the water, those pockets and those large parcels of land are going to continue to be in demand over the long term. As more people move to Australia and more people move up from Melbourne and Sydney towards the Gold Coast and Brisbane for lifestyle opportunities, people are wanting to have a bayside lifestyle or a beachside lifestyle. The closer you can be to water, and lifestyle options like that are going to drive demand, and therefore I can see that there's great opportunities to buy on the Bayside in Brisbane as an example, and on the Gold Coast and up on the Sunshine Coast as well near Noosa, when you're buying as close to that lifestyle option as the beach and the surf or the Bayside as you can. Now really what this Matusik table highlights is that the councils are going to continue to approve a large amount of supply, particularly on the Gold Coast and Ipswich and Logan councils. Now that's where most of the land is available. So in those shires and councils, there's a lot of land inland, especially for inland from the Gold Coast up near Pimpama, Ormo, and inland, west out Ipswich Way and out southwest of Logan, that's going to have that large land supply. And what we do as a buyers agency here at Purpose Property is we don't just look at councils as a whole, we really look at suburb specifics, because when you're investing in a location, you're not just investing in a council, you're investing in a suburb, and then you're investing in a specific street in that suburb, and then a specific property type. So it's very important to not analyze and get analysis paralysis when you're looking at all the data when it comes to property investing. But data is a great way to make an informed and educated decision. So I hope you found this video useful looking at the oversupply and undersupply in the Brisbane and Southeast Queensland markets. If you're interested in looking for a property and you need a buyer's agent, maybe check out my website at purposeproperty.com.au. I provide free strategy sessions where we sit down for 40 to 45 minutes, have a chat about your situation, your investing strategy, and we'll tell you a bit more about what we do as buyer's agents here in the Brisbane market. But if not, if you're looking to do this alone, I hope you found this video useful and best of luck with your investing. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.